Welcome back. This is part 2 of our two-part lecture on addiction for Module 4. The first lecture covered the biopsychosocial model of addiction, and in this lecture, we will be focusing on addiction according to the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. So the DSM-5 distinguishes between drug use and misuse. Drug use in and of itself is not a psychological illness. There need to be certain elements, certain characteristics of drug use behavior for it to count as misuse. And those elements are a degree of impaired control, so using the substance more often than intended, or using more than intended. A social impairment, so the drug is impacting someone's relationship, someone's functioning at work. Risky use, using the drug despite in risky situations or settings, or in a way that causes risk to the individuals, like bodily integrity, so like drinking and driving, for example. And then also the presence of either tolerance or withdrawal. So that sort of more physiological addiction would tip the scales between just typical or not harmful or not illness level of drug use towards misuse or disorder. Additionally, drug misuse involves the use of the substance to negative consequences. So again, like having an impact on relationships, on the performance at work or school, or after getting in trouble with the law. Also the presence of strong cravings. So like we talked about in the last lecture, experiencing cravings in response to triggers because of the classical conditioning that occurs when the individual uses drugs chronically in a particular setting. That's going to tip the scales from just run-of-the-mill drug use to misuse or disorder. The DSM also, it's important to distinguish between substance use disorders and substance-induced disorders. So substance use disorders are disorders that are based on the use of a drug. There's a problem with the behavior of drug use. Substance-induced disorders are disorders that are caused by drugs themselves. So if someone uses alcohol and experiences delirium or disorientation because of alcohol, that's a substance-induced disorder. If the problem is that the person engages in compulsive alcohol use that they cannot control and it meets all these other criteria, that is a substance use disorder. So just to highlight some elements here of the DSM definition of substance use disorder. So again, this is a problem with the use of substances that's causing impairment or distress. So it's causing and it's having a negative impact on functioning, or it's distressing to the individual. And there needs to be this element of compulsion or feeling out of control with the use. So this criteria here are different ways that the drug use can be out of control. So taking larger amounts than was intended, or taking it over a longer period of time or more often than was intended, feeling out of control, like trying to cut down and not being able to, spending a lot of time on trying to find the drug, using the drug, or recovering from the drug. So I gotta find a way to get alcohol. Now I'm drinking. Now I'm hungover. Rinse, repeat. That would be a great deal of time spent on a substance. Using in a way that is impacting functioning, as I mentioned earlier, or continuing to use it despite experiencing negative consequences. So, two of those need to be met in a year in order to count as substance use disorder. Um, Additionally, the sorry, oops. Um, Other criteria would be the impact on sort of starting to use the drugs in a way that it becomes the exclusive focus. So, um, missing or giving up other types of activities because of the drug use, using in a way that's physically harmful, um, using the drug even though there's either it's in a risky situation or it's harmful to the person either physically or psychologically, excuse me, or the person has developed tolerance. So two or more of these, plus two or more of um, either withdrawal, so the experience of um, uh, physiological dependence and withdrawal. Um, so needing more of the drug to get back to baseline, or experiencing a craving or a strong desire or urge to use the drug. The DSM has particular types of substance use disorders, and these have been updated in the most recent edition of the DSM. Um, so you can see the different types of substances here, and in red is comparing the DSM-5 to the DSM-4. That's it for our discussion of the DSM and addiction in Module